I've decided to house the LinguaFolio in a folder. Currently we have the paper documents of the LinguaFolio, the 3 parts, and so what I would do is I would print out the pages and I made each student a folder, and we would do 1 or 2 pages at a time, and we would add those pages to our folder, and it became a living document, or it is a living document. I think the paper is great. After we finished the course, I gave the folder to the student. So the idea is the student takes the folder on to the next level or to the next course, and they can keep it and keep adding to it. The reality is, and the worry that I had, is that with students, they're not always the most organized people, and they're always, a lot of them are forgetful, just as we teachers are. So I wanted something that would be more user-friendly and kind of push into the 21st century. So I personally toyed around with the idea of having an electronic version of the LinguaFolio.
The class that I did this with last year, we actually spiral bound it together, and then any documentation that we needed or examples was kept with it in a folder in my desk. This year I've decided to do a 3-ring binder, and then it can just be housed in a binder. Since I only have 1 computer in my classroom, keeping it on electronically would be too much of a hassle for us to let everyone go in there and do it. And I'm all the way out in the trailer, so getting to the computer lab is also a big task with 17 third graders. So right now we do it on paper. Maybe in the future we'll go to keeping it electronically online.
In terms of keeping the papers, 3-ring folders or those with clips, it worked really well for me. And then I used bright red so that it's really easy for me to pick up and spot them. But if I'm trying to see if I would like to use just loose hanging folders so that they can put their work in. And we will see how it works. But I didn't use online because I was in a trailer, and it was rather hassle to take them to the computer lab and have them log in. But or I have only 2 computers in my room. However, 5th graders should be able to keep in track their progress online. So I should try.
We actually have the hard copies here in the room. The students have one, and it never leaves my classroom because I know I would never get it back for some of my students. And so I'm very honest with them that this never leaves my room. And then if they move to a different teacher at a different level, it's my responsibility to get those to the different teachers. But they always stay here with me. That way we can protect it. We always have access to it. We can always reference it in the classroom. Just an example was today that my students in level 3 are reviewing for an essay test that they have tomorrow on the musical of The Hunchback of Notre Dame, which we've been studying for a while. And so we pulled those out just today to reference, well, what are the expectations for something that's written at an intermediate mid-level and an intermediate high level? And how can I tie in those proficiencies to what I'm about to do tomorrow? What are some things that I can practice and go and think about? How can I integrate this vocabulary to bump from an intermediate mid to an intermediate high, just in terms of my syntax and my sequencing? So I like to keep them here so that we can always, at a moment's notice, go reference it when we have to, and I know it's never going to be lost somewhere, that we can never get those artifacts back of their work in the dossier if, heaven forbid, they moved and it got lost, or their dog ate it, or something of that nature.
We have folders, and we share the folders. When we get our student list at the beginning of each semester, then we track down those folders, or we give our list to each other. And if Sarah has some of my students next semester, then I will make sure she gets the LinguaFolio folders. It's going to be challenging because the more students you have and the longer we do LinguaFolio, the more folders we will have. We've started saving past folders in file cabinets. I would hope that eventually we'll be able to do this electronically, but right now we're not at that point, and we're just dealing with the folders as things that we have to handle and pass on to one another. The students go get their folders. I'll say, this is a LinguaFolio exercise, go up and get your folder. So the students have their hands on those folders, and they see what's in them, and they choose what goes in them. So that's that makes it nice. That kind of folder holding on to it and look what I've got makes it really nice for the students.
I don't have really good technological equipment in my room. Our computers are just real slow. It takes a long time for them to boot up, and I just have about 40 minutes with the kids. So if we were trying to do it in a technological fashion with the kids keeping it in the computers, I think first of all for us it would have taken away that ability to be all together and to look at things spread out and to compare and to talk about each other's work. Also, it would have taken the students so long to be able to enter the data into the computer, and it would have taken them away from the class lesson while each individual student rotated to do that. I think we just would have lost some of the camaraderie, we would have lost the sharing. I think it just wouldn't have had the same feeling somehow about it. So it takes a lot of paper. I prepared for that this year. When we had our class money, I put aside money for copy paper. It's still going to be important for them to have that notebook, to be able to flip through those pages and share it with someone. So I guess I will probably continue to do that, even if I had computers for everyone. Computers are great, but they do isolate you from other people and other people's thoughts. Even if you're on Twitter or if you are emailing, it's not the same as if you have somebody else right there looking at things with you, in my opinion. And it's not the tech skills that I have any problem with. In fact, some of these kids put things up, uploaded some stuff onto the wiki page that I have. But really it's not the technological thing, because they're just like fish in the water with that. It's in the initial stages of it, having that help, that buddy. But then once you're going on into higher education, and I hope that some of these guys will carry their LinguaFolios and do that, then having an online version is the perfect thing, because nobody wants to carry around all these things. So I kept it in the classroom so they didn't have to carry it around.
The e-LinguaFolio will be much more than the paper LinguaFolio in that it's going to be an educational and organizational social media project, basically, in which the students can network amongst themselves and can network with the teachers, and that hopefully later on we'll be able to add other content areas. So they'll have LinguaFolio as one part of their portfolio or whatever they decide to call it, and then they'll have a math folio or a science folio, and so it's a huge portfolio to show what the kids have done and can do in their content areas.
The one challenge for us would be access to it, because within our department we only have our one computer lab for, at any given time, I think we have 10 to 12 teachers teaching. So it would be hard if, for example, I wanted to get it on a Friday but the language lab was already signed out. So that would be a caveat to it that we would have to try to reason out. But I think with effective planning, we could work into that. And if it were housed online too, it would open it up to students to have access to it at home, which would be important when they're reviewing and thinking about how is it that I can grow and what is it that I can do. Or I just listened to this really great podcast online and I understood this, at what level of listening, what proficiency level of listening is that what I understood today. So I think that would be really meaningful to them to have that open to them.
I love the way I do it now, but I think that with the LinguaFolio being online is going to be even better, because they're going to be able to use those different clips and be able to save them in their files. We'll be able to go to the computer lab hopefully weekly to be able to update anything and stick files in the LinguaFolio, and it'll be nice for the high school teachers as well. Once my 8th graders go on, that it'll be an easier process for them.